gravitrons. I'm more gravity. Let's play chess. I'm thinking of playing 5-minute blitz or 3-minute blitz. Let's try 3-minute blitz to start. Okay. Four games, 3 minutes per side per game. My opponent won the middle two, and I won the bookends. And I'll be reviewing the bookends. I'll be reviewing my wins. So this here is... Alright, so this shows the most recent of the two wins. And here we have the first meeting between between More Gravity and Keon, 2017. It looks like they were both reasonably accurate games, so that's encouraging. I'll put the games in the correct spot, left to right here. I know you folks can't see that, but I reordered the tabs. And the first game I played against Keon was accurate for a game in 3. 89% and 79% is reasonably darn accurate. So let's review this game. Alright, so this is book stuff. Know your book, you'll know this. One way to deal with the Scotch game, if you're playing black, is on move 4. Try bishop c5. It's active. It requires requires specific responses. Not that it has to be any one specific response, but the situation on d4 requires attention. 2 attackers and only 1 defender. So white here moves to f3, which is solid enough. And I played queen f6. I've had some luck with queen f6 in this. It seems like she and this bishop are well coordinated, even while not as part of a battery in any way. So that's it's funny because I don't mean any disrespect, but to my Scottish friends, does this this portion here, well, not now that I did that, looks a little bit like a Scottish flag in the middle of the board. The Scottish flag features cross patterns and checkerboards. It's not the correct colors for a Scottish flag, but hey, it's not the end of the world. Okay, so on we go. Bishop to e3 was bad. It looks like it's like one of these moves are kind of interesting, and there'll be some sort of bolstered control over the center after bishop takes e3, f takes e3. But this actually turns out to be a horribly disadvantaged, horribly weakened pawn structure for white to fend off, and that the h4 square can be accessed for a check, can and does become white's undoing. So first, we're going to grab some material on b2. So black's up a pawn. Look, a pawn, but it's a blitz game in 3 minutes. Not the end of the world. My opponent moves on with a good solid move, knight to d2, and I'm going to move in rather recklessly, it seems, based on the question mark that this was some sort of blunder. Black had better, frankly. There's queen to b6. I wouldn't have played queen to b6. This is a type of move that might not have occurred to me. I see that she moves away from being almost trapped in against a rook attack, and that she's attacking the loose pawn on e3. But like many players, my style of play is more forward than queen to b6 for black's 8th move. So in keeping with that, I played knight to b4. And pawn to c3 exposes exactly why knight to b4 is such a dangerous move for white and for black to play. Knight to c2. Now you might be tempted, and it's not so bad, but bishop takes or queen takes a1, turns out to be almost as good here. We see by Stockfish. So that because white is now down a full rook, and capturing to get the queen is disaster after knight c2 check, picking the queen back up, and with queens swapped, while I think overall black is up the exchange and a pawn. Okay, this is not the best case scenario. Well, no, this is about equal with what happened, is what I should say. I played knight c2 check immediately. It just seemed more clear here that white has to move his king in addition to the insult against his rook here on a1, that the rook will be captured and the capturing piece will be left alone. Also, getting this check in against white's king seemed stronger to me, enough so that I played knight to c2 check, and I earned a great move indication as a result. So the king moves. Now we instigate hostilities, or continue hostilities really, on a1. Knight takes a1, queen takes a1. Not the thing, because then queen takes c2, and we've gone up the exchange, but we want more. We always want more. When it comes to material, we want more. Almost always want more. And knight takes a1. Alright, some of these moves are good enough, not necessarily computer best. Some of them are computer best. I'll trade these bishops. I know the knight's hanging. We knew sort of for a while, since the knight captured on a1, we knew this knight might not necessarily make it back to safety. I see now, and I didn't notice this during the game, the queen is holding on to that knight to discourage rook takes a1. But with 7 points of material ahead, that's not, I mean, as much as it's a full piece, black has to also understand that there are other forces at play. Queen to c6, blocking the check. c6 is not good because queen takes b7, and like, again, a game this quick, we don't want to deal with an attack on our rook and potential attacks, elsewhere. We want things to be a little more clean. That we're up 7 points of material in a fast-paced blitz game. So I like queen to c6. I like that torch agrees. I think this is a good indication. And then with queen to f5. Yeah, so since the exchange didn't occur, let's see. Queen to c6 says a lot. Either the queens come off the board at the cost to black of a full knight, or if white does not want the queens off the board with a move like queen to f5, then the knight is spared. Sometimes you force your opponent to choose the lesser of two evils. And my opponent chose queen f5, and on that same move, the second part of that move, knight c2. Some of these threats are smart threats to make almost a checkmate threat. I think it does follow through. No, it doesn't. I don't think the checkmate is quite there, and especially not after knight to h6, attacking the queen and providing that ever so important second protector on f7. Queen to f3. A check is levied on b5 because any response. This is simply. It's not quite principle of two weaknesses, but it has this idea of using both directions of the queen's mobility, and I think you would classify this as a fork. This is some sort of fork. I'm also aware that the d4 square might have yielded forked king and queen, but I couldn't, while I was playing, and again, not now, really view a good way for black to unhinge or unearth or do away with the pawn on e3. So it's one of those things that's just you keep in the back of your mind in case the landscape changes a little bit. While that happens, I'll capture a full knight on g5, and now we see that um, black just continues and wins by way of overwhelming force. He's going to lose his knight soon, and white is going to lose his knight soon, and black has almost a minute to seal things up, which I can do. Okay. So this game almost as accurate overall. Just remember too that game shape contributes to that. So anyway, white is going straightforward, classic, occupy the center with pawns, control the center with pawns and minor pieces. Total classic approach towards the center. This is a duel between ideas. The hypermodern revolt has bishops, fianchettoed. This bishop looks like he's hitting into the back of his own pawn. Oh dearie, he's going to lose that pawn. But given that black hasn't committed his central pawns to the center, this is not really that bad. To sacrifice a pawn is an idea here. With pawn to c5, this bishop becomes very powerful under certain circumstances, of course, but the fluidity for black's light squared bishop to be a strong player in the game is there. Okay, and then the black's dark squared bishop is already a powerhouse here on g7. White must find a way to deal with that either by attacking that bishop's square color with owning those square colors with pawns in some sort of a chain, or however it is. So that's it's called the hypermodern approach, or the hypermodern revolution. Players like Reti, Bronstein, I think Reshevsky. One of the main players. Yeah, well, Reti and Bronstein used fianchettoed bishops, and as a result of these ideas that grew in the first half of the 1900s, so you think about like 1930, 40, 50, and 60, now modern day chess must include a knowledge of these types of openings where the center is attacked from the sides. From the sides, I emphasize. From the sides. And it doesn't bother white any, really. White does. It's a new idea to treat, but classic control of the center, it won't go out of style. The hypermodern revolt's more to deal with. But this classic pawn duel here, that's not going anywhere. This bit here on the A file and B file is a little bit irregular. So if you're looking at a game by Bronstein or Reti or Reshevsky, then maybe this is probably irregular in that way. Anyway, we move on. Pawn to D5. I'm like 80% sure of what I said about that, by the way. So it would be wise to double check my inklings. Pawn to d5, and white wants to shut down this bishop. Why? Because he could become a hugely powerful bishop, like we discussed, and because black's knight on g8 could, wants to develop. White doesn't want that. This is where this knight belongs on f6, but with strong pawns on d4 and e5. Uh, it makes things more difficult for black to develop. Bishop c8. Yeah, so we talked earlier about how the bishop on b7 might discover a way to be powerful and influential uh, by opening up its scope. But now with the pawn on d5 and pawns on c6 and b5, and not only that, but that they're mostly, this structure is locked. The bishop on b7 is now just poorly placed. So that also frankly goes to the strength of pawn to e5. The pawn back on e5, the pawn back on e4 rather, and white simply plays knight f3 would be a normal move to play there. Then black could play d takes e4, and with strong effect, not just for the pawn, I'll capture that back or something in a manner that's safe. The d pawn is protected twice, but at some point, still, the idea of sacrificing a pawn on c5 is available, and devastatingly so, perhaps. You got this pawn that's now controlling a black pawn on e4. You never know where my bishop might land, and then e3 must be dealt with immediately. So bishop takes g2 could capture a rook. This bishop is one of the main parts of black's story here. And I know, and to toot my own horn, not that I was thinking about this at the time, but or pawn to e5, it's poison to the bishop at b7. It's poison to the bishop at b7. It's poison to the bishop at g7. It stymies or slows black's development with his kingside knight. So it's just e5's a very, very strong move here. And to be honest, my opponent dealt with it in a very logical and good manner. Hop onto that bad bishop is now bad and really bad. Hop onto that idea and rectify it right away. Bishop to c8. Now he's strong again, right? No qualms with that, and plus it leads the opportunity. Now, the knight and the bishop can sort among themselves, sort of. Who's going to access d7 first? Would probably be the knight. Say, excuse me, miss. Did I leave my shoes? It's from Devil's Advocate, and then black can get developed. But think about this. Black is spending so much time just with straightforward things, developing, moving a piece twice. Who's going to get to d7 so that the other piece can develop? Where's black's castle? White's not concerned with any of that. It's that I'm going to move my knight to f3. I'm going to move my bishop to d3 or even e2 if I feel like it. I'm going to castle kingside almost certainly. My queen's going to respond to the board. I have some forces already deployed, and the weak spot on my pawn chain is covered once and twice. This will strain black on time and on calculation pressure. That white's plan is more simple. It's as I've heard chess masters call it. White's plan is more simple to follow. Now, white finds this idea of the h-pawn traveling against black's kingside. And it's almost funny because now this liability, having the knight stuck on g8, is actually preventing the pawn Did I say knight? The pawn, for sure, pawn, is preventing pawn h6. But, most uh, awkward way. Yes. Okay, so here's the key part of this game. Where did I catch on to this? Around here, I noticed that white can play a4, and it's tempting. I'm going to need the analysis for this, the calculations for this. A4, I think, is best move as indicated, and black must be very careful. He's going to lose either the knight or the queen to a skewer. I think he's losing the knight if he's careful. And C takes b5 is not part of that careful. Practically speaking, black might bolster the defenses on c6, or just get the queen the heck to hell Harry out of the line of attack from the king. They're on this same diagonal, and as we recall from watching the game, white squeezes in here, and he's gonna pick an extreme amount of material. Queen for a bishop. So that's pretty much it, folks. That's gonna be enough. And this discovered attack wins a full rook, and now the bishop just didn't want to move for some reason. So the rest of this is game in 3-minute kind of stuff. And the key. So just I said a lot about move e5. I maintain that this was a very strong and important move. In terms of them winning the game was also as far back as a4 to undermine the queenside pawn structure and start searching around for ways to get my bishop safely onto the a4 e8 diagonal. All right. Now let's see. What do we think, Jord? I'm gonna sign off, my friends. It's here in the New York City time zone. It's about a few minutes before 4:30 p.m., which means I will most likely be back online in the early evening, maybe somewhere around 6:30, 7 or 7:30. So that's that. For now, though, I'm going to sign off. Thank you for watching. I'm working on something about that. I know some people don't like that. It's thank you in American Sign Language. I know some people are like, well, let me think about that. Thank you for watching. Thank you, Gravitrons. I'm More Gravity. Have a great night.